guys, Portalmaster9351 here, and in today's video I wanted to do a little bit of talking about the state of Skylanders 7. Are we getting a Skylanders 7 or are we not? So throughout this video, bear with me, I feel like I'm coming down with something, I may be getting sick, I'm not sure, and I'm a little iffy on this, but I did still want to get this video out. I recorded this yesterday. Oh, the irony. As I said though, we are going to be discussing Skylanders 7 and whether or not it's happening, and look at a little bit of things that sort of can show us that we, just give us a little bit of hints on how Activision handles their other franchises. Now, this is another video in my Activision's Master Plan series that will be unified by a giant video in early February. That is coming up really, really soon. And this is another component in that series. And so that is again why we are going to be talking about franchises other than Skylanders to give us a look at what could be in the future for Skylanders. So, without further ado, let's start. Skylanders is, without a doubt, one of the biggest kids franchises of all time. Like, in terms of sales. It's sold incredibly well for the past several years. It is incredibly recognizable. If someone asks me, what do you do a YouTube channel on? And I say Skylanders, people know what I'm talking about. It's not an obscure fandom. Some people will say Skylanders, it's such an obscure fandom. Well, the thing is, it's really not. It's actually incredibly well known and incredibly successful. And it is not an obscure fandom at all because of the sheer popularity that it had, especially the first 3 games. Those were some of the best-selling games, of all time. They were incredibly successful. The franchise is really well known, and just everyone knows what Skylanders is. So, it's kind of like, people are like, Skylanders may not be as popular as it used to be, for sure, but it is still well known for everyone. And that does sort of play a role in how Activision markets. One thing that you need in order to actually sell a product is recognizability. And if you recognize a product, then it does have a higher chance of selling. And so, the popularity and basically, relevance that Skylanders has maintained for the past several years contributes to their success and their potential ongoing success if additional games were to be released, and could actually play a big factor in a Skylanders 7. Now, part of that would depend on when a Skylanders 7 would be released. There are rumors that there could be one this year, next year, or even beyond. But most people are agreeing that at some point in the future, there will be another Skylanders game. A Skylanders 7 will happen. It's just a matter of when, not so much a matter of, will it? It's a matter of when, not if. And so, I don't know. When it actually does release will play a huge factor into the recognizability of the franchise. Obviously, if a game happened to be released this year, well, it's only been 1 year since the last game released. Or, sorry, it'll be 2 years since the last game released. I don't know what I'm talking about. But also, Skylanders Academy will have been a thing, and it's not exactly like store shelves have run out of Skylanders to sell. So they're not, going to disappear off the face of the earth between now and, fall of this year. That's not going to happen. But that being said, it will lose recognizability as time goes on, and that does actually play a role, and could actually be a good or bad thing depending on what Activision is going for. Obviously, Skylanders games have been declining in sales as time has gone on. The best-selling game was, if I'm correct, Swap Force, followed shortly by Trap Team, and then Superchargers sold less than Trap Team, and then Imaginators sold even less than Superchargers, and so on and so forth. But basically, it's been declining every single year. And this is actually due to a lot of reasons, and I would actually love to make a video on this at some point, and maybe I will at some point, talking about the decline of Skylanders and sort of what has gone wrong in the series. But let me put it to you this way. It takes time to collapse and to rise as a thing. You have to make multiple mistakes again and again and again, and you have to crank out hits again and again and again. For instance, Spyro's Adventure was good. Giants took everything in Spyro's Adventure and built on it. It put in post-game content, Giants, Light Core, all that cool stuff. It put all that in, and it moved up from Spyro's Adventure. Swap Force added even more stuff. It kept everything that the old games had. It kept everything, well, with the exception of heroic challenges. That's the only thing that they took out. Elemental Gates still worked the same. There was still PvP. There was more post-game content than any other game to be released to date. They added cool new figures, the swappers, and yeah, sales went up. Well, Trap Team had problems. It didn't have PvP, didn't have a ton of post-game content, and altogether the figures just were not as cool as Swap Force. The gimmick was not as good, so sales declined. Well, Superchargers didn't fix any of the problems. It still didn't have any good post-game content. The figures, while okay and cool and stuff, and they moved, which was cool, I guess, were still really not as innovative as Swap Force's figures. So, stuff went down. Imaginators, while creating your own character is cool and all, figures were not better. There's still not a lot of post-game content, unless you're into making your own characters, really. And so, sales plummeted again. So, that's the thing. The fact that they haven't fixed their mistakes is what has led to the decline. And if I ever do a video on the decline of Skylanders, I will break that down a lot more. But the point is, games do not rise and fall over the course of a game. It takes multiple times failing or multiple times succeeding in order to build or collapse a franchise. And this is actually where we can look at some of Activision's other properties for a little bit of information. So, Call of Duty is probably one of the most well-known gaming franchises of all time. And love it or hate it, you probably know what Call of Duty is. Well, it's also made by Activision, and games have been doing pretty good. Like the Black Ops games, were really good. Call of Duty Black Ops was really good and really well received. And I don't know all of the Call of Duty games, and honestly, I don't even play Call of Duty games, so I can't really talk a whole lot on the matter. But basically, Activision cranked out a series of smash hits of these Call of Duty games again and again and again and again. Then came the few games that led up to Infinite Warfare. And they did not fix a lot of the criticisms that people had of earlier games and actually added flaws of their own. So sales went down. And sales went down. And then Infinite Warfare came out and, well, poorly received by everyone. A lot of people didn't like it. And Activision actually came out and was like, okay, y'all, we get the point. You don't like Infinite Warfare. Let's fix the problem. And so then they released Call of Duty World War II, which was a completely different direction from Infinite Warfare. And what happened? Sales went up and hype went up. But they are still not back to the point that they were before the fiasco of Infinite Warfare happened. It will take time to build that trust back up again. And they did not listen to the fans' criticisms the first time they made a game that was not good or done up to the fans' standards. It took Infinite Warfare, after several games that were negatively received, to actually make a difference in the Call of Duty franchise and cause Activision to change their strategy. It took Trap Team, Superchargers, and Imaginators to make Activision realize that there is something wrong with the way that they marketed those games. And that is why they have taken a little bit of time to get where they are now. But the important thing is, in the Call of Duty instance, they did end up releasing a really good game that was very solidly put together. Not Infinite Warfare, Call of Duty World War II. Very well received, a lot of hype around it. It was a pretty good game from what I understand. Would not surprise me if something similar happened with Skylanders. Another instance of this happening with another product is actually Destiny, and it is something that is going on right now, and I don't want to talk a ton about it because there is a lot of controversy surrounding it. Basically, they released a new expansion DLC, The Curse of Osiris, for Destiny, and it removed some features that people got when they first bought the game and blocked it behind a paywall of Curse of Osiris, which is like $25. And people were like, this is unacceptable, and basically, you ripped us off. And yeah, and Activision's not doing a dang thing about it. They are leaving it the way it is, and there's a lot of criticism surrounding it, and you can just go look that up on the internet, because I'm not going to get into it. I play Destiny, but I'm honestly not qualified to talk about this really and truly. But basically, there's some criticisms around it, and I guarantee you that Activision is going to do the same thing again and again and again until it finally starts impacting sales. Then they're going to take a step back, they're going to look at the downward trend, and they're going to say, yo, we need to fix this. But for now, Destiny is continuing on the downward trend of expansions that remove content instead of adding content, which is dumb, but whatever. So that's another instance. The third and final instance that I am going to talk about for Activision is actually the Guitar Hero situation. So, in case you're not aware, Guitar Hero Live was an utter failure. However, we can't start there. We have to go back to the original, Guitar Hero stuff. Guitar Hero was a really good game. It was a smash hit and a cultural phenomenon, to say the least. Guitar Hero, Rock Band. I almost said Garage Band, even though that's literally an application on a Mac. Yeah, Rock Band and Guitar Hero, huge smash hits, cultural landmarks, very well known. But it all went downhill after Activision did the same thing in every single Guitar Hero game. The first ones were good, and it kept on going, and then it went right downhill, and it was like, and just went away. So, Activision took a hard, long step back, and they said, Guitar Hero Live is our reboot, because we can't just be like, okay, Guitar Hero is not a thing anymore because it went down. They were like, let's take a step back and let's reboot it as Guitar Hero Live. It took a few years, yeah, but did they forget about Guitar Hero? No, they did not. And they did eventually reboot Guitar Hero. And it failed, admittedly, but they still rebooted it. Well, and while they fixed a few problems that the originals had, there were still a lot of problems, and honestly, the Guitar Hero fad was kind of worn out by the time that they did Guitar Hero Live. So that was really, in my opinion, why it failed, was more because the fad of it had run out. But honestly, there could be a variety of other reasons why it failed, and honestly, Activision has barely talked about Guitar Hero Live since it released just because of how poorly it actually performed, but that is still an example of how Activision did handle a property. So the point I'm trying to make by talking about all of these different franchises that Activision has and has done the same thing for is that that's basically what's going on with Skylanders right now. All of these franchises have had a downward trend at some point. And even though Destiny is in the middle of it, I guarantee you that at some point there will be a change, and it's going to be called Destiny 3, I guarantee you. Because Destiny is a little bit different. Destiny has a 2-year release cycle instead of a 1-year release cycle. So it's going to kind of go downhill probably during Destiny 2, and they'll fix the problems in Destiny 3. That's my assumption. That's what I hope, because Destiny is actually a pretty good game, and that's personally what I'm hoping. But the point is, all of these have a downward trend, and eventually Activision does step back and look at it and say, we need to fix this problem, let's fix the problem. They did that very successfully with Call of Duty releasing World War II. They attempted it probably the best they could have with Guitar Hero Live, it's just the fad had worn out. And I imagine they will try something similar with Skylanders. Yes, there has been a downward trend with Skylanders, but they are not going to abandon it. You don't just give up on a game franchise because of a few bad entries. You don't build an empire of this stuff just, you don't build an empire of kids' entertainment and then just walk away. Sure, the DC movies have had several bad ones. There's been quite a few bad DC movies as of late. But did they still release Justice League? Yeah, they did. Maybe it could have been better, maybe not. But the point is, they still got it out, because you don't just walk away from plans that big. You don't just walk away from the entertainment giant that is Skylanders. You can't just leave it floating around. Activision does not go and make 200 intellectual properties, 200 characters, and a world full of magic, and then just walk away from it. You don't do that. It is not a smart business practice at all to do that and then walk away. I don't know how many ways I can say this. It's not smart to do that, and Activision is not going to do that. They're going to take a hard step back, they're going to look, they're going to reevaluate their problems, and they're going to try to fix as many of them as possible. And that's actually why I am pretty optimistic that Skylanders 7 will happen at some point, because Activision does not have a tendency of abandoning their things like this. They have a tendency to reboot them later on, or at least try to fix their problems. If a game releases this year, it's not a reboot. in my opinion. It's basically just Activision taking a step back and saying, let's fix the problems. More so pulling a Call of Duty than pulling a Guitar Hero. Now, if they release the game in 2019 or 2020, it will be a little bit different. And that is what I was talking about. As time goes on, it will lose its recognizability, and there's actually a higher chance of the fad running out. And I think they discovered that with Guitar Hero. Had they fixed the criticisms that Guitar Hero had prior to, several years after Guitar Hero had faded away entirely, they probably would have had a better chance of actually being able to save the franchise. However, they waited until the Guitar Hero and Rock Band fad ran out in order to actually reboot it. And that was their biggest mistake, and I think they have learned from that and will not make the same mistake again, and will do a soft reboot, if you will, of the Skylanders franchise very soon, relatively speaking, compared to Guitar Hero. Speaking of relevance and stuff, Skylanders merchandise is still a thing, and that's a big thing, because if Skylanders as a franchise was going away, there wouldn't still be merchandise. Merchandise is a thing because the franchise is still a thing. Like, there's a comic book series called Skylanders, Spyro and Friends that they're making right now. They're making a giant thing called Skylanders Academy. Perhaps you've heard of it. Like, Skylanders is still a thing, just there's not a game. There wasn't a game last year. That's the thing. Skylanders merchandise and properties are still a thing. They're out in the world. They're not abandoned, if you understand what I'm saying. Which shows me, personally, that Activision is trying not to let Toys to Life fade away entirely. And I think that they are helped with that, actually, by Amiibo. I know some people are saying that their competitors like Amiibo and LEGO Dimensions are actually part of the reason for the downfall, but in all honesty, they may end up being what allows Activision to come in later on and reboot the franchise. By Amiibo selling successfully and well, it's able to continue the fad of Toys to Life and prevent it from fading into obscurity like that of Guitar Hero. And so, Amiibo may be the reason that Skylanders can come back into a world that is still accustomed to Toys to Life games. It's an interesting concept, and one that I'm interested to see if it ends up being true. But Skylanders merchandise is also helping keeping the thing alive. And I think that if Activision was planning on rebooting the series years down the road, they wouldn't still continue to make Skylanders merchandise. They would have dropped off the face of the earth just like Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero, when it ended, it ended. It didn't keep going. It ended. And so, that's why I think that a Skylanders reboot, or soft reboot, or new game, or whatever you have, is not as far away as some people are trying to suggest that it is. I will say, though, that one thing that plays a huge role in all of this is the Skylanders mobile game. We got confirmation last year at Activision's press conference that there would be a new Skylanders mobile game developed by the Korean developer Come2Us. However, we have heard no more news on the topic, and there are rumors that the game has been cancelled, and I will have a video out on that soon enough. But the thing is, we don't know that for sure, and whether or not it was canceled, whether or not it's continued, how successful it is, if it is a thing, makes a big difference in the future of the Skylanders franchise. For instance, if the mobile game is released and does exceptionally well and sells millions of dollars of in-app purchases and stuff like that, there is no way Activision is going to stop making mobile games. Yes, Battlecast flopped and Lost Islands was never that good to begin with. However, that being said, this is a new type of game that they are trying out and could actually be a really successful thing. So, if it is successful, Activision's future of the franchise for Skylanders could be different. If they're making more money on a mobile game than they ever did with the Toys to Life version, they're going to go with the mobile game. They're going where the money is. Maybe they can even get away with a mobile game and a console game. I don't know. But if they can, they will do it. And it's all just going to depend on how the mobile game is, if we get a mobile game, and how all that goes. But again, the fact that they're doing a mobile game also shows me that they are, again, stretching out the series and not trying to end it. Now, if the mobile game was canceled, then I would say that's pretty bad news for Skylanders just in general, unless there is a console game this year, which I am going to be talking about, like I said, in that upcoming video. However, I don't know. The mobile game is going to be a big factor in it, though, and I'm really curious to see the state of the mobile game, because that is, like I said, going to be a huge determining factor in how Skylanders 7 would be and like when it would be released and all that kind of stuff, and it's a really interesting topic to explore. Now, like I said, a lot of this depends on when it is actually released, 2018, 2019, 2020, and the goal, I will say, the goal of this video was never to provide a definitive answer on whether or not we're getting a new Skylanders game this year or next year or whenever, or if we were getting a Skylanders 7. I think we are getting a Skylanders 7. I don't know when, but we're gonna get one at some point in time. It could be this year, it could be next year, it could be 5 years down the road. I honestly have no idea, but I'm fairly confident we're gonna get another Skylanders game. It's just a matter of when. So I don't know. That's my thought process on why we're going to get a Skylanders 7. I'm not trying to convince you guys that it's going to happen this year or next year or whenever. I'm just trying to say that this is something that Activision has had experience with in the past with their other franchises, like with Guitar Hero and stuff like that, and I totally expect a reboot at some point. But that is pretty much all I have for you guys today. I know a lot of this is speculation. There's a lot of speculation to be had up in here. Lots and lots of speculation. But anyways, that is all I have for you guys today. This has been Portal Master 9351. Tell me what you think about this theory down in the comments. I'm really curious what you guys have to say because I want to know if me and you guys are on the same page. You feel me, man? You feel me? Alright, like I said, that's all I have for you guys today. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.